Grab your cup of coffee. Sit down for a story. Let's all go exploring. Making it after 40. Making it after 40. Making it after 40.
Hi, friends. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Making It After 40. I am your host, Lisa Rodriguez. I am an actor and writer who is still trying to make it after the age of 40. On this show, we explore what it means to be an artist trying to make it as a middle-aged person. This is episode 4, and I have to thank all my listeners again for listening to the show and helping to spread the word. It means the world to me. I couldn't be more thrilled to introduce this week's guest, Celeste Pechous. Celeste is an actor, improviser, and writer. You probably know her as Campbell on Work on Progress. Yay! But I know you've seen her in her many commercials and co-star roles as well. She's an incredible character actor and genius improviser. She is so smart and insightful, and she truly leads with her heart, which is probably my favorite thing about her. Whether you're a longtime actor or a newbie just starting to figure this industry out, she has a lot of words of wisdom to help us all get over those humps that we will inevitably encounter. So, enjoy the show. Hi, Celeste. Thank you for joining me today. Hi.
Well, thank you for having me. It's nice to see you.
It's so good to see you. I know with this pandemic, it's been a few years, but
Yeah, it has been.
Yeah. So I wanted to have you on today. I think I told you my email. My podcast is about what is it like to be a creative or to be a person in this industry trying to make it, quote unquote, after the age of 40. Celeste has been around in this industry for a while, as far as I can tell. And I was hoping maybe you could go into kind of your journey and how you got started in acting and improvising and comedy. As far as I'm concerned, you're like one of the best character actors out there. So,
Oh, thank you. That's very nice to hear. Yeah. I mean, I have been doing this now for half my life. It will be 25 years exactly this coming up August. So when a couple years after school, after I graduated college, I moved to Chicago to train at all the improv theaters. And, I really dedicated myself to it. I, of course, had to go, I couldn't move to Chicago without a job. So I worked as associate director of admissions at Columbia College in Chicago while taking classes. And so, I signed up for a class at Second City, like 5 levels before the conservatory, because I didn't even know what the word improv meant. I just knew that's where Gilda Radner went. So
right. I was going to ask how you knew to even go to the improv, because I had no idea.
I will tell you, this was in 1997. So the internet really just kind of came out. I don't even think there was a Google, but there was something where, if I Googled at the time, whatever that was, Jane Curtin, Gilda Radner, people that I really looked up to and still look up to, it all led me to this theater in Chicago called Second City. So I called them, and a wonderful woman who has since passed by the name of Judy Fabjance, I'm like, what is improv? And she's encouraged that I sign up for level A. So I ended up moving to Chicago in 97. I took one class. I remember it was 12 to 3 on a Sunday. I took the train down to North and Wells, and it took my first class. Met one of my best friends to this day, and experience it. Now, about, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months into it, my brother Pat, who also lived in Chicago at the time, was like, how's it going? And I'm like, kind of slow. He's like, well, you're not going to get anywhere fast by taking a 3-hour class once a week. And he was right. Yeah. So then I doubled up. I started taking classes at IO under Del Close. I started taking classes at Annoyance under Mick Napier. So I soon found myself totally invested and embedded into the community. I think I paid for my very first classes at all the theaters. After that, I started working in the box office as a
Oh,
waitress,
yeah.
as, to pay for my classes. 11 months after I moved, I was hired to tour with Second City.
Oh,
And so,
wow.
of course, I'm not going to give up that opportunity. I was very young and very green. I had no idea what was going on, but it was an amazing opportunity. And I did that for like 3 or 4 years. Once I stopped touring, I still, of course, taught and performed at a lot of the different theaters, but then I really threw my focus into other elements of acting. I took camera classes, I took audition classes, I took a monologue class. I got an agent, a commercial agent, and started booking some commercials. I booked a movie called Stranger Than Fiction, which got me my SAG card. This was in
Awesome.
2006.
Yeah.
So then I decided to move, and it was either going to be New York, because I felt like, Chicago, hands down, is my favorite city, but I needed to kind of move, I think, so I'm not feeling stagnant.
Yeah.
So it was either New York or LA, and I didn't know anyone in LA. So, of course, I chose to move to LA.
Yeah.
And so I moved here in 2007 with a job that at the time I was working in statistics, which is absolutely insane. But they allowed me to work out of my home or apartment. And so I did that while I was pursuing,
Wow, very progressive.
acting. Yeah. So when I got here, Second City had a theater. It was just starting up here. So I taught, I performed.
Yeah.
Same with IO when there was an IO West out here.
Yeah.
And got an agent, and met an amazing group of people, and just kind of started to hit the grind, which is very difficult to do in Los Angeles.
It really is. Yeah. I commend you for sticking with it and being so dedicated to it. And just like you said, hitting the grind, moving out here with nobody. It takes a lot of courage, I think.
It does. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of support. I'm from Iowa, 2-something thousand miles away. And I did have the support of my family, the love. They're always like, though, but you need a job, with insurance.
Yeah.
And they I don't know, they were a little nervous, I think, but I didn't give myself if I don't make it in 3 years, I'm out of here. I really came, which I know a lot of people do. And then it's because it doesn't take 3 years. It might take 3 days for someone, and it might take 15 years for someone.
Yeah. That's the reality.
But I feel like if you come with and I'm going to leave 3 years from now if I don't make it, well, it's yikes, that's a lot of pressure. And I didn't want to do that. I found my coffee shop. I found my, a park. I found where I can to try to make it a home.
Yeah.
Met people, really threw myself into the community here. And it took me 3 years to actually feel comfortable and like I live here, because I was going back and forth to Chicago a lot during those first 3 years.
I think one of the smartest things it sounds like you did was building that community for yourself. So you had a reason to stay. You had support here. Since you didn't have your family, you jumped right in and you built the community with your improvisers and other actors, it sounds like. And that probably gave you something to be grounded here.
Well, and one thing that I did do was all right, I'm not going anywhere for 1 year, because I was going back and forth a lot. So for my 4th year here, I just stayed here. I didn't go home. I don't think I went home for any holidays. I did not leave the city. And through that, I got a commercial agent. I started booking commercials. I started working, which was great. And that was probably about 2010, I'd say, when I really started to fully invest in me, in my career, and in, Los Angeles.
Yeah. And preparing for this, I watched your reels. I went to your website, and I love the mom jeans commercial. And I know I saw it. I know I saw it at the time, but when I was watching, I was like, oh my God, that was Celeste.
That commercial, that was my very first commercial audition in Los Angeles. And, and I happened to book it, which, I felt as a nice good sign. It's a funny commercial. My mom's like, I'm having coffee with you at the Lighthouse. And like whatever would air in Iowa. So that was fun. And that was a really fun shoot, whenever you get the chance to work with a cow. But yeah,
was the cow really there? Was there a cow?
Oh yeah, it was in the living room.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it sure was. And after that, like I really started to book a nice solid roster of commercials.
Yeah.
I then left a commercial agent and went to a different commercial agent who I'm still with to this day. Will never leave him as long as he'll have me. And and I've been working steadily in commercial. Theatrically was more difficult. It's really hard to get a theatrical agent here. My buddy, Mary Beth Monroe, introduced me to her manager, and she took me on. She has since retired, but a short that I wrote called Past Due, which is, I'll send you a link. It's really fun. I'm proud of it.
Yeah. I ran out of time, but I was supposed to watch that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Well, the point being like, I knew my manager was retiring. I'm like, because she was my one key to like getting a co-star audition for like one line, type of deal. And without that outlet, I know how difficult it is to get representation out here. And so the guy who I was in the short with was like, hey, I'm going to show this at a bar. You should come over. And I'm like, great, I'm teaching till 10. I'll walk over. And my current manager today happened to be there. He saw it. We had lunch the next day. He took me on, and I'm still with him now. And this was like, years ago. And he, through him, set up meetings for different agencies and stuff. And so I love my team that I am working with now, but that certainly did not happen overnight.
Yeah, no, I think people do think that you can just come out here and you're going to get theatrical agent. And like, there are really good actors who do not have theatrical representation. It's really challenging to get in that door. It really
is. And I know, as you and I know, being in this community, the talent is ridiculous in there and very challenging for people that have a massive amount of talent and still, having difficulty in finding representation. It is kind of that thing where it's like, well, what have you done? Well, nothing, because I don't have an agent, but you can't rely on that. You have to start doing your own material. Period.
Yeah.
That's how you start to break down those barriers and barricades and, start to move forward.
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of part of my inspiration for this podcast is because there are so many talented people within the comedic actor improviser world who outside of that community, the general public has no idea who they are, but they've seen them in like a million things because they've been in commercials and co-star roles and guest star roles. And it, like, eventually they'll start to catch up and like, oh wait, that was that guy. Didn't I see him in something? And I think for a lot of the general public, they think if you aren't famous or you're not like on a TV show all the time, then you haven't made it. And it's like, oh no, there's lots of actors who are successful and also have other jobs on the side. It's just that it's a hard industry, and there's a lot of talented people out there who will continue to act well into their old age because it's what they love. And they may never be starring in a film, but they're still having success. It's just not what we've been kind of conditioned to expect.
I think you're absolutely right. And like for those people that are like, I'm going to give myself 3 years. Like, well, what are you looking for here? Are you looking for fame? Are you looking for like instant, like, I'm on a TV show that's running for like, 10 years or whatever. Because if that's your goal, you'll probably find it. I don't know if it would be the strongest, for me, fame has never been a goal.
Yeah.
Would I like to be known for my work? Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. Whether it comes down to my paintings that I do, or I'm part of a really good story that's told. But and with the longevity of work, you're going to become recognizable. But it's not something like, it's like, wait, was that? Like someone like massively famous. And
Yeah.
and I don't know if I have a desire. I don't think I have a desire for that. I do have a desire to be noticed enough or recognized for my work as good that they would like me to be part of a good story. So like that, I think like to me,
Yeah.
if I'm doing good work and I have put quality work out there versus quantity, I think that's going to put me in like a really, good place of when people see me, they're like, oh, she was good in that. Like, I mean, hopefully, that's what they're saying.
Right. Right. No, but I think that's a good point is I think if you're in it for the fame, you're never going to be happy. But if you're in it because you want to produce quality stories or you want to be a part of something that really lights you up, then that's going to keep your fire going, and it's going to
And it is,
create that longevity. It has to be about
it
the
has to
art or
be.
the stories or the fun.
100%. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to sustain this if this, made me miserable. And I have cried. I have been bummed out. I have like been like, what the hell am I doing wrong? Like, or stuff like that. Like, that's when you know that, okay, well, this is part of
Yeah.
your DNA now. So you got to keep going because I don't know
Yeah.
what else I do, but also it does fuel me. And also it is like a lifelong career,
Yeah.
right? It's not like, great, I booked this television show. Well, guess I'm done.
Yeah.
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 You gotta keep
Yeah.
cruising and hit that reset button every single time.
Yeah. Well, and then I think one component that I'm kind of learning the hard way is having that side hustle or that other career that thrives you. And I know we've spoken a little bit about this so I was a commercial property manager managing high-rise buildings for 15 years. And after I had my little baby Julia, I decided to take a break, and then the pandemic happened and I haven't jumped back into property management. And for me, I don't know that I want to, but what's happening is like, how do I feed this career and this passion? Because I need money to do that. And I know you had, after you had your big booking with Work in Progress, and I want to get into that too. Mm-hmm. But after you had your big booking with Work in Progress, I asked if you were going to still manage your apartment building that you do. And you said, I will never give up this job. Which I was like,
I'm still doing it.
It really gave me some perspective. I was like, oh, yeah, just because you book the TV show doesn't mean you're set.
No, I mean, you have to be realistic, right? Like everything wonderful can happen, but like I do come from, a place of like this. I know that as wonderful, and it was a dream job, and I'll probably never have another dream job like this before, where you're working with your best friends type of deal. But I knew that it eventually is going to end. And then when it ends, I'm not going to play that risk game on, great, I'm ready for my next TV show, because it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy to call a plumber for somebody. I'm so thankful for the job that I have, because they're super supportive of me. They let me go to Chicago 2 years in a row for 4 months at a time, and then allowed me to come back and continue this job that allows me an apartment, and lets me audition and shoot when I have a booking. And I want to do a good job for them, because they're letting me pursue my work. And, Work in Progress. And like, I met Abby and Tim, the creator, and Tim, who directed the first 8 episodes of season 1, in my very first improv class.
Oh, wow.
And so like, this was like 20 something years later where this all came into play. It's ridiculous that it even happened. It's crazy. But I also am enormously realistic. Yeah. Especially LA is so expensive. It's like, come on, man. Like you really do need to have 3 hit television shows that you're a series regular on all of them, and they're all lasting 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is like crazy expensive. And I think the biggest lesson that I've been learning in this last 2 years, 3 years was like, oh no, you gotta keep that fuel coming. So I'm fixing
Yeah,
that.
and also it doesn't it allows me to kind of remove that pressure of,
Yes.
what happens in between jobs, because I don't think people realize that it could be months in between jobs.
Yeah.
Some days, there have been moments in my life where I'm like, oh, sweet, I booked two commercials. They're both shooting next week. That's amazing. That's very, very rare.
Yeah.
And luckily, like I've been able to keep my health insurance, through SAG, and continue to take classes or whatever, and afford to live
Hmm.
here with the help of like having this job as well on the side
Yeah.
that I will
Yeah.
never give
No.
up.
Yeah. And I think that's just a key thing that you also said is like it takes the pressure off of the acting. You lose that desperate feeling, which which casting directors talk about so much. And if you're coming in and you're like, I need this job to pay rent, well, you're
Yeah.
probably not going to book it because we can feel that energy. So that's really important.
I envy people that can do it. Like, I don't have financial support from anyone but myself, and so it's like I am different from other people's situations. I don't know their situations. I
Yeah.
know mine, and I know what I need to do in order to be able to stay in Los Angeles and continue working as an actor
Yeah. Yeah.
until I get
Yeah.
that, 21-year season
Yeah.
show.
Well, and then you touched on your painting. That's another passion of yours, which I'm sure also
Yeah.
helps feed your soul when the acting work is slow. You
Well,
have this other creative outlet.
especially during the pandemic too, when studios shut down, the work really stopped for 2020 at least. And this was right in between season 1 and season 2 of Work in Progress. And the painting really helped me focus on other things while acting, while the opportunities just weren't there
Yeah.
because the world has shut down for a little bit. But not only that, like it has relief. Like, when's my next audition? When's this like next
Yeah.
opportunity? Like, I've just stopped thinking in those terms because you never know when the next one's going to hit, and
Yeah.
that one could potentially change your life, and so it's exciting when you get those opportunities to audition for somebody. It's an honor, and then that's step one out of a million steps. But
Yeah. I want to circle back to Work in Progress because I think that show is such an example of what you've already talked about, like making your own content. And that's how you're going to make your way through. And you can provide more detail. But my understanding is that Abby had a show, like a one-woman show, a one-person show that she was doing in
yep.
Chicago. And then that became this TV show, which was so unlike anything that I think we've seen on television. I loved that. I loved the way they portrayed her life and her relationships and the friendships. I would love to hear a little bit more about how that came about and how exciting that must have been for you to get to be a part of it.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I mean, so Abby and we met even when I was still living in Iowa. I came to Chicago for a random weekend and ended up meeting Abby at this party, whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, she's hilarious. I love this person. I go back to Iowa to my life. And then like a few months later, I end up moving to Chicago and I went to go see a show at IO and she was performing. I'm like, oh my God, that's that girl I met over the keg.
You're starstruck.
Yeah. And so then I went up, I'm like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm Celeste. Hi. And that was, right at the very beginning when I was starting. I met her right away in the very beginning of my improv career at IO. Tim Mason, who co-created it, was in my level 1 improv class at IO West. And we were big buddies.
Yeah.
And then cut to, 22 years later, I've kept in touch with them, obviously, and consider them both family. But I was out here in LA and Abby and Tim were like, hey, do you want to come out to Chicago for like, a weekend and shoot. We're doing a web series because Abby did a show called Work in Progress, a one-woman show at at IO in Chicago. And they're like, you play your best friend and it's just real quick and dumb and whatever. I'm like, of course I do. But I do need to be back by Monday morning because I have to let a plumber in type of thing,
Oh, that's hilarious.
So we made that happen and I flew in. I was there for like less than 36 hours. We shot the scenes that I'm in the very first episode that aired for season 1. That's what we shot in Chicago during that time.
Oh, for the web series.
And yeah.
Oh,
and so
okay.
when they were cutting it, when they were cutting it, like editing it, they it started to feel more like a pilot versus a web series. So they decided to go with that instinct and cut it into a pilot, which is exactly what's aired on Showtime. And on a whim, they're like, you know what? Let's submit it to Sundance. And they did.
Oh
and
my gosh.
Sundance accepted it. And Showtime was in the audience. And I think Abby flew, like it was ended on a Friday. Abby was in LA on like a Monday meeting with Showtime and they picked it up,
Oh my gosh.
8 episodes. Yeah.
That's so cool.
It's crazy. And they ended up like airing, the pilot in its original format, which Tim and Abby both financially did on their own, wrote it, shot it, the whole thing. And then that was in March of 2019. And I was in Chicago, I think in May, and we shot through like October. And then it aired. Then it aired like 2 weeks later.
That's so cool.
And then pandemic hit.
Yeah.
But we were picked up for a season 2. So both seasons now are on Showtime.
Yeah.
And I'm just so proud of the show. It is, like you said, Lisa, there's nothing really like it on television. It was very honest, very real. And Lily Wachowski was executive producer, and she had such an incredible voice to it. And it was just, full of a cast and crew of diverse, beautiful voices that really went in to make this a genuine look at life and some of the struggles that people tend to go through.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that really speaks to the power of the storytelling is, so my husband is just like white cisgendered male. And I was like, I really want to watch the show about this queer woman and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, all right, let's give it a shot, and he loves it. He like, cause I feel like generally like, cisgendered white men, they're like, they have very narrow taste, but he loved the show and he loved both of your characters, of course. And he thought Abby was hilarious and loved the way that they were storytelling the relationships. And like, at the end of the show, we'd be like, oh, I don't think I like how Chris is treating her. Like we would get like really into like the dynamics of all that. And so I think, yeah.
Well, you feel like you know them through it. Yeah. And, and I come from a family of cisgendered, members, and they all loved it. And I get messages from people like, hey, I'm a straight father of 3 girls in, Alabama. I just want you to know I love this show.
Oh,
so
that's awesome.
Everyone I feel can relate to it somehow. I mean, it's a whole world.
Yeah.
Right. And we are seeing it through, this queer person's eyes. But just because you're queer doesn't mean that you're like, not part of the world that we all live in.
Yeah.
So I think everyone really can relate to it. And also, if you have OCD, if you have like anxiety, if you have like, if you feel that you're overweight, if you feel, we all have our struggles. And this is really just kind of a poetic way that we're looking at it. And it is something that I'm incredibly proud of to be a part of. I think a show that has and hopefully continues to provide peace and possibly has made an impact on people, and I get messages from like moms, like, I'm with my transgendered child. We're watching this. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Like
Yeah.
to see people that we don't ever get to see,
Yeah.
And so yeah, like it's just, I can't believe it. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
dream job, and I
Yeah.
got to be on set, and because we shot it in Chicago, so many of our friends from the improv community were able to be a part of it,
Yeah. Yeah.
on the writing staff, as guest stars, as co-star, so it was truly magical
Yeah.
in every
It became a
sense
full
of the
family
word.
affair. Yeah. I hope that I hope the industry continues to produce shows like that, because like you said, it's not, the story isn't just for queer people. Like, this is just a story and the people happen to be queer in it. And
Yeah,
I would
exactly,
love
exactly.
for that approach to be more universal, because then it feels like less segregated. And I feel like there's been so much segregation of like, this is for women and this is for men and this is, so
Right,
uh,
exactly.
but I don't know if you know, but my eldest, my son, he's trans. And so in the last,
Oh,
yeah, he came out in the last year, actually. So I'm looking
oh my
forward to,
God.
he's 12 now. And so I'm looking forward to watching that show with him. I have to decide like when I think
Oh,
he's old enough,
wow.
but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that is like, I have several friends with trans kids, and they're like, "Is it, hey Celeste, is it appropriate if I watch this with a?" And I'm like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
wait, wait just a little bit longer.
Give them a
If
couple
they're
years.
12, hang tight just
Yeah.
for a hot second.
Yeah.
Because it is, I mean, there's a lot of language,
Yeah.
and we are still talking children here.
Yeah.
But to know that they are not alone, that they have people that absolutely 100% love them. And I'm so happy for you and your family to have this loving foundation for your child. It just, it fuels me like no other, just because that wasn't around
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, hopefully we are moving forward. We have a long way to go, but with moments like this, like with your family, you are in fact changing the world and their world, and allowing them to grow in a place of love, and that is wonderful to hear.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And
I
I think
love
we
hearing that.
feel pretty fortunate because we live in Los Angeles, and Children's Hospital has so
Yeah.
many services for kids. It's been, a lot of work on our end figuring out where we go to get his services and where we go to get him the support that he needs. But he's got so much support here in Los Angeles. Like, even today, like, we're gonna go, and he has a therapy session at the hospital, and it's free.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's so I'll give out this little tip. If you have a kid who's non-binary, trans, actually any kid, I think they'll take any kid. There is the Adolescent Youth Department at Children's Hospital provides services for kids.
Oh wow.
And they even will pay you, like, if you're a teenager and you're sexually active, you want to get tested for STDs. They basically pay you. They give you this CLIN card, and they'll give you $10 each time you come in and
That's
take care of
amazing.
yourself. Yeah, yeah. So,
Oh my gosh.
Hospital,
Yeah, just
Los Angeles is the best.
That's an amazing shout out. I'm so happy to know that information. I hope that we can see, places like this for kids all over the country, all over the world. And, I think slowly and surely, but I think the more, because it's not just when the kid comes out, it's also when the parents come out with a child,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's how we really start to increase the awareness and the growth of I have a brother that works in education, and someone asked him, they have a trans child in their class, and they asked him well, how am I supposed to, treat or interact with this child? And my brother was like, oh, just like everyone else.
Yeah.
There's no, there's,
yeah.
just watch my sister's show, and just like everyone else.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I feel like we're going way off topic, but there's like there's another thing that you can Google for educators called the Gender Support Plan, and you can go through it with the child's teacher and the principal, and you fill out like, here are my safe adults on campus. These are where do I go if I feel unsafe? Who can I turn to when something has happened? Who is allowed to know that I'm trans? Yeah, but okay, we're getting off topic.
Okay, great, wonderful.
Anyway, yeah, I could go on and on about that, but I think that's a different podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Let me know.
But that's really beautiful that your brother is supporting. And now you're one of like 5 or
I am one of 6 kids.
Okay.
We lost my brother Jeff passed of scleroderma 3 years ago.
Mhm.
So I have 4 brothers and a sister, all very, very close. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm one of 5. I'm right in the middle.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, same, right? Smack dab in the middle.
So how has it been for them with your career? Like, has there ever been a time where they were like, Celeste, I think you've given it your best shot?
No, never. At the very beginning, I think they're like, "Oh boy, Celeste, it's gonna be hard." Like, coming from Iowa, I never knew an actor. I even in college, like I was a communication major, and my one of my roommates was a theater major, and I'm like, "Well, what do you do after you finish the play?" And she's like, "Move on to the next project." I'm like, "Oh, that's weird," because in my whole head at that time, it's like job 9 to 5, job, right? And you have that job for 50 years until you retire.
Yeah.
Like that was my whole mentality. Until I learned, and threw myself into the world of acting professionally. But yeah, no, I mean, once I think it was like once they started seeing a commercial, or I started getting health insurance through acting, they're like, okay, Celeste.
Yeah.
And but like my brothers and my sister, especially my brother, who I'm, smack dab in the middle with, who's 2 years younger than me. He's my rock. Like
Yeah.
he's hugely supportive. Jeff, my brother who died, biggest fan out there of me.
Yeah.
It was like, it's all good, Celeste. If I didn't get something, I was bummed. But the fun part is like if I have a commercial running and my nieces and nephews, I have 12 of them. If they see something, that I happen to be in, it's kind of exciting for them. And also work in progress. Like, my nieces and nephews, they range from 4 to 23.
Yeah.
And even my nephews who 15, 16, they have watched it.
Yeah.
And they have had amazing talks with their parents about it. And they're like really proud that I'm part of the show that can possibly, make the communication door open a little wider for this type of stuff. And because they're living, in a school where they have all walks of life right now.
Yeah.
And this is in Nebraska and in Iowa, and but yeah, no, they've all been really supportive. And still I always call my mom or my sister or brother on like, oh my God, I had this audition,
Yeah.
So I think, and then, but on the flip side, my very first television show that I booked here in Los Angeles was for Workaholics on Comedy Central.
I saw that on your IMDb as a pole dancer.
As a pole dancer. And so it was funny, that audition. I'm like, oh God, a pole dancer? That's okay. So I go in just like a t-shirt, cut off jeans. I think I brought like a cigarette into I don't know where my mind is, but I walk into this waiting room and everyone is beautiful and have all these like gorgeous outfits on. And I'm like, ugh! And so I went in and I'm like, well, I'm here. And I ended up booking it. I had to take pole dancing lessons, which was amazing. And then it aired and I was so excited. And I remember calling my mom and dad. And I'm like, did you guys see it? And they're like, oh, Celeste. Yes. They could give a rat ass on half the stuff. Now my dad, he died in August, but he was the biggest fan of Work in Progress.
Yeah.
And, and so they're just over the moon on Work in Progress, just very proud of that. And,
That's really
we've had
special.
fun with it. But also,
Yeah.
it's like, Mom, did you see? She's like, Celeste, I'm watching something and I can't figure out how to pause this on Netflix. Can we just talk later? I'm like, yeah, they have their own lives. They don't care.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
care. They have a lot of other children and grandchildren. I am not the only one.
They know that their baby is taking care of themselves. You've got health insurance. You have a roof over your head. And so they're happy. That's all they need to know. They don't care about what the work is, just as long as you're safe.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's really neat that your dad was the biggest fan of Work in Progress. That's really
he
special.
was. I took him to the premiere in Chicago. We had a premiere party, and my dad came, and two of my brothers were able to make it, and my sister. And it was probably one of my favorite nights of my life. It was just, it was just so fun to have them there with me.
Yeah.
And we watched the first two episodes. We, then went to like the party. They got to meet like Julia Sweeney and, and so
that's so
but
cool.
just to experience that with them was very, very special. And a night that I hold very dear to my heart. And the other one too is like, since Work in Progress shot in Chicago, when I was not working and I'd have like a few days off or whatever, I'd cruise down to Iowa. So this last year, I was able to see my mom and dad more than I have been able to in the last 15 years, which was very special for me because, of course, lost my dad a few months later. But yeah.
That is really special. Wow. It's so funny how things happen like that. Like you got to get in all that extra time with him before he left. That's really special. Aw.
Yeah.
Well, that show really is just the best thing that's come along in so many ways.
It really is. It's such a gift. I'm so grateful for it. And the funny thing is like, oh man, no season 3. Aren't you mad? I'm like, mad? I just got to have 2 seasons of an amazing show on Showtime with my best friends. Why would I ever be? Yeah, it's a bummer that it's not a season 3, but I am truly grateful. Like to me, this is the dream. I was living the dream at 47 years old, right? Like, this was something that I didn't see coming. And then all of a sudden, here I am shooting with Lily Wachowski and, Weird Al Yankovic's in it. And it's like, wow, this is awesome. So like, grateful for what it is.
Yeah. Selfishly also, I was really disappointed that they didn't renew, but then also I'm like, well, what is Abby going to make next? Because she needs to be on TV. She's really funny.
Oh, I'm sure she has a lot of tricks up her sleeve that we'll soon be able to see, but she's the best.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, as you move forward with your career now, what do you look forward to aging into with your career?
Good storytelling still. Like, I really want to be part of, work that can speak for itself and stand on its own and not, something with integrity. I hopefully see myself as being part of an ensemble piece where the character has, something to say. Like, as an actor, like the writer's words, the director's direction, like whatever, I'm the actor, so I'm going to be fluid and do what the story needs me to do. But my goal and my agents and manager and my team, we're all on the same page. I want to do good work. And I'm not speaking from Celeste. I'm speaking as the project. I want to be part of like a really good story. Again, for me, it's not necessarily like quantity, but it's the quality of work. And, my manager really does kind of pushes me to be part of these like great, stories that have a little bit more of a meat on the bone for the character that I'm coming in.
Yeah.
Like he wants, and which I do too, the career to grow. So coming off as a series regular for a show, hopefully continue at that, pace.
Yeah.
And whether it's a series regular or recurring or whatever it might be. But yeah. But it's fun. I love doing guest star roles. And I don't know, I just want to continue to work.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of examples of people like Ann Dowd and Samuel Jackson.
Oh, tons.
And like these actors who got their start like in their 40s, 50s. And like from that role, they just continue to like make a name for themselves. And so I think that's
when people,
in your future.
This is what I say to my like students when I'm teaching. If you think that you've aged out by like 28 or 34, this is not the career for you. Or you have to really ask yourself, what do you want out of this career? Because you don't see like accountants being like, oh man, I'm already 29. Like, oh my, like, no, you can't look at it like that. This is a profession made up of storytelling with people in the world, which we all fit into somehow. I did not move to Los Angeles until I was 35. I did not book my first series regular role until I was 46. And, and yes, I've worked since I've been 25. I mean, studying, training, working. But again, these are building blocks towards a beautiful landscape of work, which hopefully you can have like a, canvas displaying all the different stories you've told instead of just like one, which is fine too, if it's a really good one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's all kind of what you want. And I think as I grow older, the parts are really fun and deep. And like Ann Dowd is my number one fave. And
yes.
And her characters are just out of this world. And for anyone that's like, man, there's no work, well, one, make the work, create it, but also don't mentally like tell yourself like I'm done, because it's just, if that's how you look at the world and you think that's how Los Angeles is going to look at you, then yeah, you're probably right, just because that's what you're kind of putting out there, For me, like I want to be able to transform into whatever they're looking for. Listen, I'm not going to be able to drop 60 pounds in like a week. I'm not going to be able to like tell everyone I'm 32 years old. Like, so this is where I'm at now. And if there's a role that fits for someone like me and I can meet the needs and voice of this story, then it's a winning combination. But I'm not going to force myself into being like, but I'm perfect for that hot, young best friend in high school. But I'm perfect.
Yeah. I think, you only do yourself a disservice if you're trying to be something that you're not. And I think one thing for myself is like learning to embrace where I'm at now.
Yeah.
I think for me, I'm aging into my casting. Like I'm solidly in that mom category, that suburban mom, that soccer mom, the neighbor, the teacher.
Love those roles.
And and I think as I embrace that more and more, I think the tricky part that I've been navigating is like, okay, well, do I look early 40s or do I look late 30s? And at the end of the day, somebody was like, it doesn't matter. It's like, it's just a general, like, you embrace the type and embrace who you are and just like bring your essence to it. And like the age is just like there. That part doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean,
it's about the character.
You're not going to call you in for a 22-year-old vixen, right?
No.
But they may call you in for a 40-year-old vixen. So it's like, if I can do my work and be genuine in my delivery, in my approach to the character, then I'm doing my job. If I am not right for that part, fine. I have no qualms about it. I can't force anyone. I can't say, but that's not just how it works. For some people, it might be like they probably have that, like, but I'm good for this. Like I don't have like Steven Spielberg's number in my phone. But also I will read the room, I will read the script, I will prep my material, and I'm going to know if this is a good match or not. And my agents send me out for things that I'm right for. I think when I was younger, I was like, what were my insecurities? My insecurities, I guess, were I was trying to figure out what they wanted, which was trying to read minds and then putting a caricature upon my character so it came out not genuine at all. Until I got so tired of doing that, and I'm like, screw it, I'm just going to go in and be me. And then I started working. Then I started booking stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's the best advice you can give anyone of any age, is just go in and be you. Don't try to be someone else.
I mean, I think that's the key. That's the secret. That's the secret sauce.
Awesome. Well, this has been so great. We're just about out of time. And I wanted to ask you, do you have anything that you want to plug, or do you want to give the listeners anywhere that they can follow you?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Instagram, whatever.
I believe I have an upcoming episode in a new show that's coming out on Hulu called Maggie, where I make a guest star. I think this starts July 7th on Hulu, and Work in Progress, of course. And I don't know when this releases, but during the month of June is free for Pride weekend, or for Pride month, via Showtime. And both seasons 1 and season 2 are out. You can follow me on Instagram at Celeste in Clogs, because people make fun of me for wearing clogs, and I like clogs. But yeah, and so we'll see what happens next, but I'm just hitting that pavement as we have to continue to do. And I look forward to doing it well into my 80s and 90s.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'll be right there with you.
Great.
I look forward to those grandma roles. I want to be a crazy kooky grandma when I get
there. This is perfect. I just want to be the lady that stands out on her porch and says, "There's a storm a coming."
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It really means a lot that you took a chance on me, because the episodes aren't even out yet. So.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for having me, and I wish you the best. And let's rock and roll.
Isn't Celeste just the frickin' best? Please follow her on Instagram at Celeste in Clogs. Be sure to check out Work in Progress, and you can catch her most recently in episode 2 of Maggie on Hulu. If you want to watch her short film, Past Due, it is linked in the show notes below. And if you want to support the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. I don't think Spotify has reviews, but Apple Podcasts, if you could do that, that would be fantastic. This helps the show attract more listeners. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there's a link in the show notes and on the show website. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at makingitafter40, the number 40. If you want to see what I'm up to besides podcasting, check out my Instagram at Lisa Rodriguez. Thanks again for listening. See you next week. Bye.